Hello everyone and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. We have a ranked game for you guys today between myself and 4SP3R4, also known as Maurice. Now we did have a video from him, a community cast, one of his games recently, and if you guys remember, Maurice and I actually played against each other in the rookie tournament sometime along. It was a 2-0 series, best of 3, did go my way, and this was actually the first ranked game he and I have played against each other. If you're confused by my rank, by the way, like some other YouTubers, I may or may not have a second account, one of which is currently Colonel, the other one is on its way to Colonel. Major at the time of recording, actually at the time of recording it's already a Lieutenant Colonel. I'm just digging back a little ways in a couple of ranked games that helped me get there. So we have a match here. I'm playing as Entente, and I'm not playing as mech, I'm just playing as standard Entente, and I kind of messed up my opener pretty bad. So I have double M84A, I have a bunch of stuff that's mechanized, and one on wheels. And I didn't go far enough up. So the thing about Maurice is, and the thing about a game in ranked, usually you don't know your opponent, but Maurice tends to play France National, and he plays it very quick. So my Entente deck here usually does not play like an Entente mech minus the veterancy bonus, but in a game where you're going against somebody who's very good at being mobile, it seemed like the thing to do. Just play it nice and slow and cautious. Use the time, and you know, I think that was actually a decision that hurt me, especially in the opener, because Maurice is defying my expectations. He has a Leclerc, he has smoke micro to support it, he got an early take into the town here, he has a very commanding position, even pushing me back a little bit on the left hand side, and most of my opener is ineffective. So I'm having to pull back. I have nothing that can fight the Leclerc. The double M84A was intended to fend off fire support and wield stuff that I thought he would be bringing, not something that has a lot of punch like the Leclerc does, and he's even screening it well with reservists and things like that. So shout out to Maurice, my opponent here, 4SP3R4, for some very nice play. Now, there is a second side of this though. Super Entente SEM for 25 point recon tank is not going to be good at return on investment, and it runs face full into a Nev emit. Get a little lucky there with the shots on, but that is 120 points, and it's low availability, so if you take those down betted, you only get 2. So the second you play against somebody who you know likes planes, keep track. And I already have in my head right now, okay, one of those is gone, there's at most a second one like that, there could be a couple of other tools as well, but, you know, we've got one plane down already, and we're just moving the Nev emit so we don't get counter batteried or anything like that, and keeping up a bit of fire. Now, the second I realized that I don't really have the punch to take this, I started rerouting on this side. We're getting more BVPs up and buying an ATGM, and we're just going to defend at this section of woods and this section of town. And you might be thinking, okay, what's to stop Maurice from pushing in right now and taking all that spots? And we're going to show you. So Legion 90 moving around this side, Vav's moving around this side. All of my openers moving around here as well though, so I have BVPs, I have Mech and Zilvana, I have double M84A, and the biggest question is, how do I handle that super heavy if it decides to push? So the thing about super heavies is people don't have many, and they don't like to lose them. The way you discourage one from pushing is you peel apart everything supporting it. That means these 1390s need to die, the reservists need to die, the Legion need to die hopefully if I can get it, and the way that we stop this forward pressure is by picking this apart piece by piece. So I have a Drug team that's going to be shooting in, and of course swinging a miss in the AMX 1390. Got a little bit unlucky with Drug teams recently, but I think we'll get him just by way to fire, and he's out in the middle of nowhere basically, so the smoke's going to be too late to get back to it, and the new smoke on the way will be a little bit too late. So that right there has him nervous, because if the Leclerc takes a Drug team to the side, it'll still be alive, but only just, and that becomes a target for other things. Drug team firing again, he's trying to shoot the gap, and ATGMs, I'm sorry, they're just a little bit faster. So we get that. I do lose an M84A, which really hurts, and so far I think I'm pretty much down on trading. We've taken a number of bad trades. M84A, the other one, almost gets side shot there as well, and the thing is, that really does hurt, because planes can capitalize on point differentials very, very quickly. So the other things about this opener, I don't want to leave any vulnerabilities, so I've directed points to the left, because, well, I was expecting maybe there's going to be a helicopter or something coming around this side, and in the meantime, Padobranchi are just going around. Now, oftentimes early on, if you devote too many points to being sneaky, it can really hurt you, because they're not being effective in combat, they're not contributing to the front immediately, they only pay off 10 to 15 minutes later, and you get 100 points a minute, so that's a lot of ground they need to make up. But these Paddlebronchi, and particularly on Mudfight, I think it's a little bit different, because regardless of which side you're on, you get something moving around the side, and if your opponent, so 4SP3R4 Maurice here has a really forward position. I have no presence in Anna, I have no presence in Dimitri, I have no presence in Fetter. If he goes in and decides to cap Anna, then these Paddlebronchi that are sitting back here in these woods, they pop up, they kill it, and they run away. And if there's nothing here, then the Paddlebronchi keep going and we go over to Elena. So that's the plan with them. We are hopefully going to get value either way, and we just have to be kind of subject to following how the game develops. We're flowing with the breeze on this one. In the meantime, I am trying to get a cap around the side. Now I want to cap in Anna, and I want to do this because I've already capped center here, and the solution to games where you still have a lot of stuff on the ground, I think, is apply pressure where you can, particularly on Mudfight, where a little bit of tick goes a long way. It can often be very tough to get a tick on this map, so we are going to get a +2 if we can. And if Maurice wants to cap, then hopefully my second one will still get me a +1, while he's trying to get a second cap on the way. Now, Puma Pirate, Veteran C3, that's not going to be Command Infantry, but there is a cap over in Fetter, which I did kind of expect at this point, and that makes the other cap in Anna all that more important, because at this point my opponent can probably get a CV into the far side of Dimitri, and I'm not going to be able to see it. So I did have the intention to move these Granatieri farther forward. We did have a couple units of infantry that were headed here earlier on in the opener, and then I just had to pull back because they all would have gotten killed by Leclerc. So yeah, very not ideal. Very, very not ideal. Now, the other thing is, I'm pulling out an M91A Vihor. This is a questionable buy, I think, because that Leclerc still does have support, and this town is often a staging ground for ATGMs. The French have the ATGM Milan F3, which is uniquely deadly. It is very high armor piercing, and that can definitely decide the match between the Vihor and the Leclerc. So this is a really wonderful super heavy. It has 70% accuracy, 22 AP, 22 front. It's a very, very powerful tank, but unsupported, it's not enough. So I was thinking, okay, well, do I bring out some reservists? Do I try and push Dimitri here? I just really didn't feel like it. We've already seen a Super Entente SEM come out, and even if I trade with another one, I really don't want to. I only have 2 of the Vihors as well. So unlike that first pickup where we got one for a cheap recon tank that I can replace, this seemed risky. So instead we're rerouting over here. I'm going to fight in Anna. And I'm going to fight in Anna, I'm going to pretend to be a mech deck, and just hopefully get a lot of good value there. I mean, even this. You don't think it's much, but 30 points for Gazelle Canon, that adds up. And it also tells my opponent he has to deal with something over farther than he thought. So if I can stay evasive, if I can move through here and just be a nuisance, then blue is going to have to direct a lot of points over here for not much gain, and yeah, I can potentially even get some more pickups as well. So we have Mechanizavana, we have Mechanizavana, more Mechanizavana. This is sort of what you'd see really just from Entente Mech. Instead, I am playing Yugoslavia National General deck, so very different deck, but that's sort of how you're seeing the board presence play out for that reason. On this side, we're going to try and move the Granatieri up, try and move the T-55s up, and then we're going to go up to speed 2 here just because this was the definition of a slow and careful match where I don't want to be throwing things away for no return. I do also just want to say hats off to Maurice here. This was a lot tougher of a game than well, it was a lot different of a game than we had before, and I think in a really positive way. And I'm always one for good games, win or lose. So I think this is really nice. In particular, actually I want to talk about this. Legion 90 versus Mechanizavana Pesh. 25-point shock infantry, 10-point lines. Why is this going in favor of the Mechanizavana? And we just missed it there, but we can still see from the gunfire, these guys are not in the woods. They're taking full-on damage. My Mechanizavana are taking reduced damage from both of them being in the woods. This section can be really deadly for that if you have your infantry caught between the two sides. So we actually got a huge return on investment here just from line infantry taking down both Fabs, and the Legion 90 was a really nice pickup for 20 points of line infantry that admittedly they will die, but this is why you buy mortars as well. So 9 Legion, 5 Mechanism of Honor, 4 Mechanism of Honor, we get the stun, my Mechanism of Honor is still dealing damage, and whenever those mortars hit, that's going to be at least a little bit of pain. So down to 6, 5, another stun, suppression coming in from the mortars even when they don't land direct damage, and that right there is a nice way of getting value. So, you know, these guys, I mean, we don't get the kill on them, I will come to regret that later, and at this point, I was kind of feeling like the M91A Horde probably should have been some Proletary 90, but, you know, live and learn, and make different decisions, shall we say. So, I think one problem with this deck as it stands right now is it's too slow. My only wheeled infantry are the Padobranchi 90, and these guys, the second group, should have been probably fighting in Anna, supporting the Mechanism of Anna Pez, providing that better anti-infantry and anti-tank capabilities, because there's a ton of abs, and just like I said, his 30-point recon helo, it does matter, it does add up, so does mine. So we did lose that there basically for nothing, and I mean PvPs will body Vabs, it's actually kind of impressive, but you know, this could have been a little bit cleaner. So meanwhile, I'm attempting to split my opponent's attention for minimal investment, so T55s, ATGM, a couple of Granicieri, and the bow of M86, which I think I'm taking that out of the deck. I like the idea of having a 15-point recon vehicle, especially one that's this quick, but I don't know, it tends to be a bit of a tax in the late game and mid game, and I think just the 5-point truck might be a little bit better. We can still do blind stuff like this, where we spot 10 RC, we spot a second 10 RC shooting in from the other side, and I really should have waited for that to have the Droog in position to be able to fire back. Meanwhile, Padobranchi 90 are not sneaking into the base because we spotted a Panther here. If this thing shoots, my Padobranchi just die, and there's no real point in taking that. Plus, you know, we get to pick up with a Gamma too, so that's pretty fine. Unfortunately, Maurice does know I have something over there, and the last thing I want to do is give him a second red blip on his radar so that he's looking for something. Instead, he might think, you know, okay, he saw a red blip up near Anna earlier, there was a Gamma 2 right there, and it died. So maybe the problem's taken care of, maybe he doesn't really need to do much for it. The Padobranchi 90 are going to take the long way around. Instead of shooting through here and maybe running into another recon helo, just go up and over and around and through. Something like that. So on this side, we have a Sava. I'm hoping to start getting something going in Fetter. And in Anna, I was really worried he'd countercap. It's part of why I brought the Plowman out. We're just going to stun things here. And I don't quite use the Plowman correctly. So a bit of criticism there. Instead of getting a stun and then pushing into it, I'm just trying to wear down his infantry and his vehicles, which at such a long range the Plowman's not amazing at doing. However, we have some stuff going on in the middle ground that Leclerc has not shown up yet, again, since the early game, and, well, with the delivery of reservists it might, but we're taking out his eyes right here. So the Granicieri moving up and forward, they get the spot, BVP, get the kill. That's exactly how this combination is supposed to work. And then on this side, I probably should have been, yeah, so the Droog team is a bit farther back, it's just the BVP shooting in. Probably should have been a bit more careful with that, because Leclerc, I mean, this is textbook for Maurice right here. You have a screen, and then you have a unit getting killed. But this is interesting. So that Leclerc was down to 8 strength from the first engagement. We hit it twice, frontal armor with the Droog team, and an L15M has 15 HE power bombs and 15 HE, 6 AP. And as it turns out, 15 AP does precisely 8 damage to 3 armor. So that was a right click for the L15M, and the bombs land just behind / on top of the Leclerc, running into 3 armor, getting the kill. So that really was, I think, a big swing in this game, because that makes the rest of this kind of toothless. I have a Droog team. We actually even get a shot on the Rafale, although it is a bit of a miss because of that. And then that did distract me here as well, so my micro's not very good. We did lose a couple of things, but I think that's probably a worthwhile trade-off. I mean, I will say, the fact that the reservists get this far up just goes to show you how effective that would have been had Leclerc been there. It's very hard to rush this section of forest for exactly that reason. Particularly if you think that there's a way you might get bombed directly. But Dimitri's capped for blue. We are engaging with a couple of AMX 40 tanks over here, and some Legion 90. I mean, this is This is where my gripe with the M84A comes in, where it's very fragile armor for the point cost, but that gun does scale very well, so we'll see both of those in action today. Mechanism of Honor, moving to clear this out, want to keep that drill team alive, and I bought a couple of recon tanks just because I figured, you know, we'll move them up. They have a bit of punch. It's sort of like having the Leclerc there as well as a big tank to pin things down. It's not super heavy, but it does very well. Powder Monkey 90 doing very well also. And this was starting to feel like a game where we were getting the value that I needed out of it. So just grinding my opponent down, getting just more stuff on the field. And that little blip right there should have been cause to move the M84A back. It's damaged, it's too expensive to throw away for nothing. And instead, I got a little bit greedy. So we get another shot off, but that M84A is going down. In the meantime, second Nev emit here. Again, just to watch out for enemy planes. And the Powder Monkey 90 have finally reached their destination, and this right here we're going to show, I think let's actually show this from the blue perspective, because it really was incredibly impactful in this game. So right now, there's a lot of forward presence here from blue, maybe not quite as much as I have in Anna, but certainly a nice lockdown of Feder, double AMX-10, oh no, AMX-10 RC, double 1390, brutal combination for killing infantry fighting vehicles, and then the infantry inside with those different tanks. And let's just watch what happens. So the Rafale was already purchased, keep that in mind. But Super Entendant purchase, looking for probably the recon tanks here. Yeah, it looks like it. I think they actually got a BVP. But blue probably should have noticed that the reservists here are dead. And this is a small note. Make sure that you're unloading your screens, because if the reservists don't die inside the boxes, they'll be around for longer. Get the chasseurs, we get the Villeret Logistiques, and then I just pull back in, we're going into the woods, and we're going to hopefully get a lot more value out. So double 1390 buy could have been for here. It's more likely that was already sort of in the pipeline. And the Gazelle Canon and the Cassiope are what's going to be looking for my Powder Monkey 90. Now, the interesting bit is that this is 30 points, this is 40 points with the Cassiope. There's a lot of point value here, especially with the Pirates, another 25. And they're all relatively fragile, so 6 strength isn't horrible for the Puma Pirate, but it's going directly over Elite Powder Monkey. That's going to be a really, really painful day, and if they can handle that much armor that quickly, then they might be able to do a lot more. This right here is good, but the issue is you're going to lose line of sight. So the other thing that could have been an answer here is reservists, and just piling them out, making the reservists spot while the Gazelles get the kill. Instead, for 45 points, there's an Entendant IVM. Now, this is for reservists right here, and blue can't even see if they got the kill. So right now, not really sure. Super Entendant did come in and get killed, and so did the Rafale. So this is distracting from that frontline micro. Just like we've been looking at this, blue probably has been as well. And that's 2 really expensive planes, 120 for the Super Entendant, 180 for the Rafale, 300 point swing right there. And it's not necessarily because of this going on, but it certainly helped. Entendant coming in again, because this isn't dealt with. The Gazelle Canon goes down, the Cassiope goes down. That's what, 95 points in helicopters directly killed, plus the chasseurs and in the autocannon transports earlier. Right now we're edging up to about 150 points killed, and a couple of, I mean, that's what, 3 bombers bought in as well. So 300 points roughly, or well, 250 or so points that have been devoted to uprooting these Powder Monkey 90. That's 3 minutes of reinforcements-ish, 2.5 minutes of reinforcements-ish, and all of that stuff is delayed going up and actually into Anna, while as my reinforcements, if we take a look here, there's been coming in a constant stream, and I have more on the way. Oh, M60Ps, value infantry moving up here, trying to put pressure on as well. We're engaging with these Legion, and just, I mean, yeah. So the Proletary, they're down to only 1 squad left, but there's a lot of potential here still, and it's still a problem that blue has to handle. So let's take a look. Entendant coming in again. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm doing my best to mimic a French friend of mine who once said it upon my request, but I'm not quite entirely sure. So if you do speak French, let me know if I'm doing that wrong. And then my intention down here is just to push into the town, while blue's intention with the Gazelle Canon again, I mean, just look, this is so unfortunate. Dead. That quick. It's insane. High vet and high training infantry in the woods are just brutal pieces of work. So we're engaging with the reservists. I don't really want to take that engagement. Entanda is hoping to bomb it and finally get rid of this thing. And then there's a Leclerc by, and you have to know what's coming by now. I mean, just... Oh, it's one of those moments where if it happened to me, I would probably be throwing my hands up in frustration. And as it is, that Leclerc gets just close enough, boom bar, side armor, dead. That's the second Leclerc as well, so... Oh man. In the meantime, this is actually a really good thing here too. The amounts of points that I was able to build up, well, some of that could finally go into the air. Now, up to this point, I hadn't really bought any planes other than the L-15Ms. That was in direct response to a threat on the board that I thought I could kill, and did kill with it. Super Gallop is a response to seeing that command vehicle, that command tank, because that kill pretty much pays the Super Gallop. So we've gotten our value out right there, and we've decapped this zone. So Maurice was taking on me, 67 points to 163. Now it's back to neutral. We have a spot in the AMX from these Graniciari. I highly recommend. This is a very nice sneak point for something like Recon Infantry. And we're just plummeting the town, pushing Mechanizovna up into there. They're not amazing killing power infantry, but if everything else is stunned or panicked or something like that, they definitely can pull their weight. So, in the meantime, getting these units forward, getting my whole firing concrete of BVPs forward, and a second Super Gallop by, maybe a little bit questionable, but we saw that other CV in Anna, and I really wanted that kill, and we do get it just in the nick of time as a second Rafale comes out. So that's another 180 points, and at this point we have to do some accounting as well. There's been 3 different 45-point bombers, there's been a Rafale by, there's been the second Super Entendant that went down, there's been a lot of points in the air, and those aren't points on the ground, which means that I'm feeling pretty confident if I move this stuff forward in and have good enough fire support, we can get a lot of work done here, despite losing my super heavy over on the right while we weren't looking, while we were looking up in Elena, and needing a bit of replenishment. This is looking pretty thin, but if I can trade this for the center of the board and Dimitri, so be it. We have a single unit of Mechanizovana, and we have a Drug team moving up. This is going to be a lot of pressure that Maurice has to deal with before it's too late, and it'll be too late hopefully very soon, well, at least from my perspective anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is going pretty well at this point. The worry here is how do you protect this? So my answer is BVPs, Proletariat 90, and then just getting a couple more reinforcements on the way, and I'll probably buy a Recon Helo as well. Once you have a position sort of about here, it's very hard for Blue to get a firing solution on a Recon helicopter that's in the back part of Anna, but they still can do a sneak around, so I like to put one right about here. It'll spot some of the stuff in this semi-open section, and at worst case it'll die first. So if you do cap over on the right a little farther, then that's a nice way to do it. This did really hurt though, so Entendant, 45-point bombers, we get the stun, and Maurice has a really good reaction. So his second Entendant was there to respond, and he goes in for the Neva M1T, and I'm way too close together. This is horrible positioning, because with one single 45-point bomber, well actually 2, I guess the first one did die, that was 200 points in kills? Yeah, rough. Plus Anna's decapped, it's 195 to 67, feeling decently confident with 12 minutes left. That's 180 points of tick remaining at +1, so Blue could win, and I felt reasonably confident that worst case I could go back to a stalemate in about a maybe 2-3 minute period. We will be getting a CV for Anna again pretty soon here, but my main goal right now is prevention, because if I can lock down Anna, this side of it right here, then I'm under way less pressure to get another command vehicle, even if Dimitri gets capped again for Blue. So if it does, and I can just counter cap here and keep my opponent out, then that's one way to win the game. Just keep the steady +0 and make sure that we're not making a bunch of mistakes. So Entendant bomb coming in, speaking of mistakes, a little bit too grouped up. My anti-air is out of ammunition. Should have already had this on the way. If you have your AA net waiting for ammunition, you waited too long. So this is something that I am definitely prone to doing, I'd say from time to time, but for me it's actually one of my biggest weaknesses as a player is I don't have my logistics on point, as they say. So working on that, we'll see. In the meantime, that Panther, I suspected, because it is Veteran C2, might have held a CV, but I did mess up a little bit with the L15M. So whenever you're going to do a right click, just be very careful what you're doing it with, what your target is, because sometimes you would be better with a fire opposition, and if I had dropped those bombs directly on the Panther, that would have been a dead CV instead of a cap on Dimitri and a +1 for Maurice here for 4SP3R4 going into the last 9.5 minutes of this match. Now, my M84AN has had some of the worst luck in the world, but it has still gotten a couple kills. Granny Ciari might be overlooked, so we're going to be sneaking them forward, just why not? And the last resort is countercapping and Fetter, if I can get to it. But I don't think that's going to be all that necessary. I did really want to kill the Krutal, and we did finally get that Krutal done. But, yeah, this is kind of rough. What I needed to have done is not lost the second M84A, because even that single M84A would just pound these guys to dust. On the other hand, we're doing a decent job. L17K, looking for that Tiger Had, Super Galib. This recon tank pickup was only done because, unlike when we had the Super Entendant going for mine earlier on, it was behind an L17K that was on a mission. So the L17K would get shot first, might kill the Tiger Had, might not, but it'll draw fire and allow that Super Galib to get more time to get the kill and get out. And then just second L17K by it. There are certain things where you just need them to die. For when you're playing against Eurocorps or anything with access to the Patu Tiger, it's the Patu Tiger. When you're playing against USSR, it's going to be the Akula, but more importantly, it's the K52. Needs to die, even if you trade 30-50 points worse getting the kill there. Get the kill. I promise you it's worthwhile. Actually, the example for USSR, particularly poignant because a lot of people helo rush with USSR. If you kill the Ka-52, then their Hinds, things like the Mi-24P, or I guess VP, for the USSR version, they're going to be way less effective. In fact, even if they're sent other places looking for command vehicles and everything like that, they often won't be able to spot them without the Ka-52's optics before it's too late to fire, at least without a delay. So we're going in, second Tiger Had by, second Tiger Had killed. This time we get it on first pass, or at least I'm pretty sure we do. Well, might have survived. Huh, look at that. I actually thought I killed that in game. Didn't learn. But, you know, we are still spread pretty thin. I do want to retake this forest here. I should have already had reinforcements going up to the square between Dimitri and Anna. If you notice, nothing there lived. Lots of bombing runs, and pretty effective ones at that. It's a known position. He knows I have enough stuff there to potentially get some kills, potentially make this a harder game for me to keep playing. And we are not yet buying a CV. I thought I did by now. Interesting. I guess there's no need to. Yeah, with 6 minutes left, a +1 is not quite enough to get a win. It might be able to get a tie, but it's a big might. So yeah, we're just looking for the Tiger Had. L17K going in, and once I do get a couple more kills here, we should be going in for cap on Anna. There's no need for me right now to widen this gap, so let's just transform it into more effective units on the board first, right? Why not? Gamma 2 will surprise you. It's really fragile. 45 points, 4 strength is very fragile, but the ATGMs are actually pretty decent. The anti-air, the Shilohs are pretty decent, and I figured with the AMX 1390s moving forward, I just wanted a fast kill. So that's one. And people won't underestimate the Malyuka 2M just because Malyukas get a bad name, but I mean, for this we have 50% accuracy, 40% stabilizer, 24 AP power. It really is a pretty decent anti-armor tool for relatively cheap. Not for free, of course, and there are drawbacks, but I actually quite like the Gamma 2. I think it's one of the better quick responders in the game because of its low price tag. So we get the Jaguar A, diving that Rafale with L17K does also kill the Rafale, which you have to be careful about that with those high-end fighters. They don't have more strength, and L17Ks are very good at hitting. So at this point, let's go up to +2. We are pretty close to a surrender here. It's going to come after. This is a CV in the Panther, and we watch it land. I mean, it's a little unfortunate. This is one of the drawbacks of the Gamma 2, by the way. No rocket pods. But we're just going in, and down to 2 strength here from the explosion of the helicopter. Yeah, there it is. Mortars online. And that is going to be a kill on those command infantry in the open, subject to mortar fire. And if not that, we even do still have a BVP on the way, and a bow of M86. So that's going to be the game. Many thanks to Maurice /4SP3R4 for our first ranked game ever. It was a nice time, and I hope to see you around in more ranked games in the future. And we'll take a quick look at the KDs, units that did the best or worst, although I think for one of those, we have a pretty good idea. And the late game was just devolved into, I now had built up enough planes to be able to be obnoxious for that. So, 4275 kills, 2780 losses. A lot of that came from the Padobranchian around the side. Think about it, we have the Super Heavy for 165. We had at least 150 points of helicopters, and some more infantry and vehicles besides. So they did very well. Nevamit, probably also the MVP. This was the one that was in the middle of the field. Super Entendant, Double Entendant IVM, Jaguar A, everything like that's very nice. And then just nice solid value. There's a reason that Entente Mech is considered one of the best decks in the game. Gets a little worse if you don't have that infantry veterancy, but honestly it can still work even as a general deck if you have that style of play in mind. Super Gallop, very nice. Second Super Gallop was a one-way trip, but we got what we needed and we got out. And that's going to be all we've got for you guys today. Thank you all for hanging around. We'll see you again real soon.